Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear colleagues, participants, very good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are, your time zone. I would like to welcome you to the launch of the Tracking Progress on Food and Agriculture Related SDG Indicators 2025 report. We are delighted to welcome our colleagues from the FAO Statistics Division in FAO headquarters for the launch of this report, which is a very important moment indeed in the way we track the progress on the SDG indicators we are responsible for. 5 years before the deadline for achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, there is an urgent need to understand where the world stands in eliminating hunger and food insecurity, as well as in ensuring sustainable agriculture. The new report, which we are launching today, which is, as I said, entitled Tracking Progress on Food and Agriculture Related SDG Indicators, provides a statistical overview of progress made around the world towards the SDG targets related to food and agriculture. With the participation of the FAO Chief Statistician and Director of the FAO Statistics Division, Rosero Moncayo, the event will present the main findings of the report, as well as make a number of policy recommendations to harness the power of data to achieve zero hunger and achieve food systems transformation. We are happy to welcome in person a number of permanent missions, as well as partners, and virtually also quite a significant number of missions, organizations, and academic institutions everywhere around the world. So before starting, I will just say a few housekeeping that you have heard now 500 times. The event will be in English, and at the end of the event, we will have the opportunity to have an interactive dialogue. And for those participating online, we would like you to use the Q&A module of the Zoom platform, and we'll try to address as many of your questions as possible, either directly or in writing. So today, we will have very distinguished speakers. We'll have, in particular, His Excellency Mr. Achsanul Habib, Ambassador, Deputy Permanent Representative and Chargé d'Affaires AI at the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Indonesia to the UN. He will join us in a few minutes because I understand he has an overlapping commitment. We have Dr. Luc Ingenbleek, who is food safety and nutrition specialist at the World Health Organization. And then from FAO, we have 3 distinguished colleagues, Rosero Moncayo, Chief Statistician and Director of the FAO Statistics Division, Valérie Bizier, the Deputy Director in charge of data and statistical governance within the Statistics Division, and then Dorian Kalamvrezos Navarro, statistician within the Statistics Division. So without further ado, I will very quickly give the floor to José to deliver some opening remarks, and then we will articulate the way the colleagues contribute. But delighted to have you, José, and kudos for such an incredible work that you are going to present today.
No, thank you, Dominique, and thank you, all of you, for your presence. Actually, it's always a delight to be here in Geneva, and thank you for hosting us once again. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to open this launch event for the 2025 edition of the FAO SDG Progress Report that is entitled Tracking Progress on Food and Agriculture-Related SDG Indicators. We are presenting this report loyal to our mandate given by country members of being custodian of the global reporting of 22 out of the 233 SDG indicators. And this is the indicators, the 22 indicators that are under our mandate as Organization on Food and Agriculture. Now, this is a biennial publication of FAO. And the last report that it was published in 2023 coincided with the midpoint of the 2030 Agenda time horizon. Now, the 2025 edition coincides with a number of other important milestones. Firstly, 2025 marks the 10th year anniversary of the 2030 Agenda, and this has not been a cause of, for much celebration. This is because we have to bear in mind the sobering finding that only 20% of the SDG targets in general are currently considered to be on track. Not surprisingly, the 2025 High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development called again for urgent, coordinated action to accelerate progress while reaffirming commitment on the SDGs. Secondly, and from a slightly different perspective, 2025 saw the second comprehensive review of the SDG indicator framework taking place, which was the last opportunity for introducing substantive changes to the list of SDG indicators before 2030. One of the outcomes of this process, that for the ones that do not know, happens under the umbrella of the United Nations Statistical Commission, FAO became a custodian agency of an additional indicator, and this is together with WHO and UNICEF. This is the new indicator of minimum dietary diversity, which is an important addition, as it allows us to cover an important subject that was neglected until now, which is the one of quality of the food and diets that we consume, and that are an important determinant of malnutrition. We'll hear more about this in the next presentation and also in the panel discussion. Thirdly, 2025 will also see the celebration of the World Statistics Day, an event that happens only once every 5 years. The upcoming celebration, which will take place on October 20th, should remind us of the fundamental role that data and statistics play in driving evidence-based decision-making across all human endeavors. The SDG indicators, while highly visible for monitoring progress towards the global SDG agenda, represent a small subset of the statistics that countries regularly produce and have also helped catalyze more attention to the importance of the statistics in general. Now, let me say a few words about the report itself before my colleague Valérie Bizier dives into the more detailed findings. First, in terms of the overall findings, the figures are quite troubling, in line with the overall predicament of the SDGs. Indeed, the report finds that only 1/3 of the 22 indicators under FAO custodianship have registered some improvement, whereas progress has deteriorated on over 3/5 of the indicators. But improvement, because I was just referring about improvement do not necessarily mean that the targets have been achieved. One can make improvements, but can be still very far from the targets. In this sense, the report finds that the world is close to achieving 1/4 of the relevant targets on food and agriculture, while another quarter remains far or very far from completion. Therefore, we need to redouble our efforts to achieve food security, improve nutrition, and sustainable agriculture, while ensuring the sustainability of our natural resource base. This report sheds light on which areas have achieved the most progress and which have seen a deterioration, and can therefore serve as a guide for galvanizing efforts on those objectives and in those regions lagging further behind. Second, the report also sheds light on the persistent data gaps that continue to hamper global monitoring. Despite an important effort done by countries to increase the availability of food and agriculture-related data, nowadays, an average country reports up to 65% of the 22 indicators that are under FAO custodian. With only 5 years left in the 2030 Agenda horizon, this is a key challenge. And indeed, there have been repeated calls for increasing investment in data, including the one of the UN Secretary General, the Pact for the Future Digital Compact, and most recently by the Civil Compromise on Financing for Development. Despite the overarching resource constraints, FAO, loyal to its mandate, will continue to support country members by providing assistance to strengthen their statistical capacity to produce, process, and disseminate SDG indicators, which is one of its key responsibilities as a custodian agency. This support, which my colleague Dorian Navarro will provide details on later in the agenda, has been fundamental for countries to report on an increasing number of indicators, and thus improving their ability to monitor progress towards the common goals of the SDGs. Thanks for being with us. And with that being said, I would like to give the floor to Valérie Bizier to present to us the main results of the report.
Thank you, José. And before I provide you an overview of the report and its main finding, I would like to thank all the participants for joining us today in presence and online, the FAO office in Geneva for hosting this event, and of course, the dedicated team in FAO who works on this report and all the contributed unit that provided input. Next slide, please. So as highlighted by José, the 2025 edition of the FAO's SDG Progress Report arrives at a pivotal moment. For this reason, the objective of this report is to provide a timely analysis of the SDG indicator under FAO custodianship and the progress made towards their respective targets in order to inform and guide our collective action towards 2030, so the last 5 years of the agenda. Compared to the last edition in 2023, this year's report goes back to its root and focuses exclusively on the 22 SDG indicator under FAO custodianship. The few novelty introduced in this report is first, the introduction of a new indicator on minimum dietary diversity following the 2025. Novelty is the inclusion of the SDG indicator 241 proxy, which was developed as a temporary measure to address the current data gap with the official indicator. And the third one is the widening of the scope of SDG indicator 251 on animal breed at risk of extinction to not only local breeds, but transboundary breeds. In addition, this edition of the report includes an updated assessment of progress for each of the indicator, as well as for SDG 2 as a whole, and future new and enhanced visualization of progress presented both at global, but also at regional level. Finally, the report, as mentioned by José, benefit from an increased data availability made possible thanks to FAO capacity development effort, and Dorian will provide more detail on that. So the report is now available in digital and PDF format in English, but by the end of next week should be available in all 6 UN languages. Before I start, I would like to open a parenthesis to discuss the new indicator on minimum dietary diversity for women, as this is a significant advancement in measuring SDG target 2.2, aim at ending all form of malnutrition. Prior to the introduction of this new indicator in the global SDG indicator framework, target 2.2 focused on measure related to nutritional outcome and lacked a measure on dietary quality, which was seen to be essential to prevent and address malnutrition more effectively. So as part of the 2025 comprehensive review, a coalition of countries led by Switzerland, as well as FAO, WHO, and UNICEF, introduced this new indicator, and it was one of the 3 indicators that were added to the current SDG indicator framework. So the MDD is divided in 2 indicators. One is monitored by UNICEF and focused on children, while the one on women 15 to 49 years old is monitored and under the custodianship of FAO. The MDD for women measured the proportion of women 15 to 49 years old who have consumed food from at least 5 out of the 10 predefined food group in the last 24 hours, and as such, indicate the proportion of women that are most likely to have a micronutrient adequate diet. So the data is easy to collect. Previous slide, please.
Previous slide.
Yes, this one. It's easy to collect. You need to integrate into a household survey questionnaire, a few questions at low cost. And so far, with the publication of this report, we are releasing data on 80 countries, and we intend to increase coverage on this indicator. Next slide, please. So throughout the report, progress is assessed both in terms of current status and trend, and that for each of the indicator with sufficient data. So the current status evaluates how close or far the world is from in a world or given region to achieve the targets. Here we distinguish between targets that have a numerical yardstick, where progress is calculated based on the distance to the actual target, and those without numerical yardstick, where current status is determined by assessing the distribution of country values and classify them in quintile from best performer to worst performer. The trend assessment indicate whether the world or specific region are moving closer or farther to the target. And the trend is determined most of the time with reference with the 2015 baseline. This approach gives us a clear and balanced picture of where we stand and where we're heading with the agenda. Next slide, please. So this slide highlights the different categories that are used during the assessment of both current status and trends. So for current status, the scale range from far from the target or far below the median, represented by a crescent with only one red segment, to target meet, shown by a crescent fully filled in dark green. Regarding the trend, it ranged from deterioration, indicated by the red downward arrow, to target met, represented by a green triangle. So the two assessments are combined into one visualization. So here we have an example of how to interpret the visualization. In this case, the world, it should be interpreted as the world is far from achieving the target or is performing below median, all country considered, and this has been a deterioration since baseline year. So next slide, please. Diving into the result of the report. Next slide. Yeah. Yes, thank you. So for the sake of time, my presentation will focus now on the main finding of the report at global level and per indicators. But if time permits, I will give you a short walkthrough of the report where you can find more disaggregated data, visualization, and data table for each of the indicator and SDG 2 as a whole. So starting with SDG indicator 2.1 on undernourishment and 2.2 on food insecurity, the report showed that despite global effort, 9.2% of the world's population remains undernourished in 2024, while 28% of the population, or 2.3 billion people, experience moderate and severe food insecurity. Turning to the newly introduced SDG indicator 2.2.4 on minimum dietary diversity for women, the first global estimate showed that only about 65% of women of reproductive age have achieved MDD between 2019 and 2023. If we look at these figures from a progress assessment lens, we notice that the world is currently at moderate distance with no improvement made with regards to ending hunger. For food security is far from being achieved and has deteriorated since 2015. And for the MDD, it is at a moderate distance to be achieved, but at this deteriorated since 2015. Next slide, please. Yes. So looking at indicator 2.3.2 and 2.3.1 on income and productivity of small-scale food producer, the available data revealed that they continue to show lower productivity compared to large-scale producer and earn less than half of the income of their counterpart. Turning our attention to SDG indicator 241 proxy, which combines 7 key measures into one single score reflecting both current status and progress towards sustainable agriculture. The latest data suggests that the world is at moderate distance to achieve productive and sustainable agriculture. And while there has been slight progress since 2015, the pace of improvement remains insufficient to meet the target. Next slide, please. Regarding SDG target 2.5, aimed at maintaining genetic diversity in food and agriculture, some progress is being made. In particular, the amount of plant genetic resources for food and agriculture that are conserved in gene banks reached 6 million species in 2024. However, the animal material stored in vitro ex situ conservation remains low, with a conservation rate of 5% for local breed and 17% for transboundary breed worldwide. If we look at the progress assessment figures, only the assessment of the trend is available for indicator 251A, where we can observe some improvement since baseline. The other indicator doesn't have an assessment due to the methodological reason. Next slide, please. Yes. Little progress has been registered in the conservation of in vivo in situ animal genetic resources measured by SDG indicator 252, where at global level, 70% and 80% of local and transboundary livestock breeds, respectively, have been determined to be at risk of extinction. This is quite worrying, considering that we just saw that only a fraction of their genetic material are currently stored in gene banks. Next slide, please. So in terms of public investment in agriculture, as reflected in SDG indicator 2A1, the report showed that between 2015 and 2023, government spending on agriculture reached a record of $701 million USD. But in relative term to GDP growth, the agricultural orientation index fell from 1.5 to 1.43 in 2003. As for SDG indicator 2C1 on food price volatility, the report highlights that the proportion of countries with moderately to abnormally high food prices decreased slightly in 2023, but remained 3 times higher of their 2015 averages. From the progress report's perspective, we can observe that for SDG 2.A1 is close to target, while 2C1 is currently far from achieving the target. Moreover, both indicators have followed a deteriorating trend since baseline. Next slide, please. Let's now have a look at the target 5A that aims to guarantee women equal rights to economic resources, including ownership and control over land. As shown on the map here, there are still significant data gaps for the 2 indicators under this target, which prevent us to assess the progress globally. Nevertheless, for SDG indicator 5A1, we notice that for the 80% of the 46 countries with sufficient data, fewer than half of women have secure right to agricultural land, and men are often at least twice likely to be landowner. Regarding SDG indicator 5A2, it shows that 59% of the country, legal protection for women's land rights are still weak or absent. Next slide, please. Moving to target 6.4, which aim to increase water use efficiency while reducing risk related to water stress. Indicator 6.1 show that global water use efficiency has improved from $17.5 per cubic meter of water in 2015 to 21.5 in 2022. Agriculture saw the greatest relative gain in this progress, which is the good news, but still remain the least efficient sector in the economic returns to water use compared to the industry sector and service sector. For indicator 6.2, global water stress stands at 80% in 2022 global wide, with severe scarcity, however, in some region that is posing serious risk to ecosystem and economic and social development. The progress assessment available for SDG indicator 641 shows that the world is at medium distance in terms of country value with improvements towards the target. Next slide, please. Under SDG 12, global food loss measured by SDG indicator 1231A is estimated at 13.3% according to the latest 2023 numbers. So a slight but non-significant increase compared to 2015, but with fruit and vegetable accounting for the highest losses in the overall index. So the progress assessment reveals that the world has made no apparent progress in reducing food loss since 2015. And this indicator is not yet reported at country level, so it's impossible to assess the overall status of this indicator. Moving on, next slide to the various FAO indicator under SDG 14, we observe a continued decline in the sustainability of global fish stock, down from 90% to 64.5% between 1974 and 2021, as denoted by SDG indicator 1441. We also observe an increase in the degree of implementation of instruments combating illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, as denoted by SDG indicator 1461. A slight decline since 2022 in the effort to protect and promote small-scale fisheries, as denoted by SDG indicator 14B1, and a marginal decrease in the contribution of sustainable fishery to GDP, as denoted by SDG indicator 1471. So in terms of progress for SDG indicator 1461 and 14B1, on the implementation of international instruments, it reveals that currently the world is close to achieving the target and shows slight improvements since baseline. In contrast, the world stands at a moderate distance to the target for SDG 1441 and is far from achieving the target for 1471, with both indicators showing a decline trend over time. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. Turning to SDG goal 15 indicator, we do not have updated data as the quinquennial report on forest resource assessment will be published this year on October 21st. As a result, the current picture of SDG 15 indicator remains pessimistic as it was in 2020, with terrestrial ecosystem facing increasing threat. So forest area measured by indicator 1511 showed the decline across the world with a net loss of almost 100 million hectares of forest between 2000 and 2020. Sustainable forest management measured by SDG indicator 1521. There has been progress globally, but the loss of forests persists in certain regions, mainly due to agricultural expansion. Turning to SDG 1542, the global mountain green cover declined slightly from 83% in 2000 to 82.2% in 2021. Around 3.5% of mountains area worldwide experienced diametral land cover changes, highlighting the need for stronger ecosystem protection. So the progress assessment of SDG Goal 15 indicator present a mixed picture, but the three of them deteriorated or slightly deteriorated over time. Among them, SDG indicator 1542 is, however, currently close to achieving the target. Next slide, please. So in summary, as José already mentioned, the report showed that for half of the SDG indicator under FAO custodianship, for which the assessment of current status was possible, the world is still at moderate distance to achieving their respective target, with one remaining quarter close to the target and one quarter, the last quarter, far from achieving the targets. Worryingly, 60% of the indicator show a deteriorating trend since baseline. So we won't have time to go through the reports, but I really invite you to browse to the report as it provides additional analysis and disaggregated information for each of the indicator, additional progress assessment at regional level and at goal level as well. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Valérie. The team will make a slight adjustment in the system because we have a computer issue. But while they do that, there is a question on the chat. We found the Q&A module, which is on slide 11 on gender. What was the progress assessment? Improving or declining? If you could perhaps just clarify.
But we would have to check for this 46 country if we've seen a trend in over time. But I don't think we have enough data for the same country to also assess the trend. So 2 data points in the time series.
And then I see David who is there from UNCTAD Fisheries and on your slide on indicator 14. I think now we have all new fishery subsidies agreement as well as with the BBNG agreement that is going to enter into force in general. We will have a good progress in these indicators in the future.
Do I need to do a comment or what's this?
Yeah, if you want to make a comment, please.
On the first regulations in the report, you can see almost the solidity of the FAOs. As we show here, we have some of the indicators. All of them are usually not doing good, except 2. The one 4.5, which is on marine protected areas, which is switching from 7 to 8%. We hope one day we will get to 30% of the global environmental framework, global biodiversity framework, but that we're improving because more countries are expanding the marine parks. Well, on SDG 14, sorry, 14.6, sorry, 14.4 on management of the stock. The FAO data is accurate. They have improved the scope of the population's analysis and improvement, which is very good, are very good news. But we have a systemic problem there to improve that. It's not about the data. So basically, that 30% unsustainable fisheries are stocks that we already depleted. So the only way it's going to improve is that we restore, not only manage. So the other 60% we're improving management in the sustainable ones, but on the depleted one, if we don't do restoration program, progress is not going to change. So just to be very frank. On the 14.6, on instruments, we have the WFP subsidies agreement, so we'll start having the implementation. That will increase the number of instruments covering and fighting agri-fishing. There is also a recommendation of the OECD on support to agri-fishing on different sectors. And UNCTAD is making a contribution to expand the scope of the perspective of FAO, which we have developed the first database on ocean goods, trade, and services. So it goes beyond fisheries, it goes into biological resources from marine origin or non-food products. That substitutes cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, etc. But all the other value chains from maritime transport, port, tourism, etc. So we have now much more larger view to analyze 14.7, which is the confirmation of the sales.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, and always good to have your perspective. Now, let's move to Dorian, who is going to take us behind the scene of this report and tell us how it is done and what effort you are doing as part of the broader role as custodian. So Dorian.
Thank you very much, Dominique. So we've heard a very succinct summary of the main findings by Valérie about the report's key conclusions and findings. So in the next few minutes, I would like to step back a bit from the content of the report itself and indeed take the audience a bit behind the scenes, so to speak, to see how FAO is supporting countries collect all this data that feeds into the report, and what are the main challenges that we still face in this respect. So we heard earlier that the report this year benefits from the highest availability of data to date. To put this statement into perspective, I would like to take you back to the not so distant year of 2017. So the map that we see right now depicts countries' reporting rates for these 22 SDG indicators under FAO custodianship in that year, 2017. What do we see? Well, we see that the vast majority of countries are able to report on between 25 and 50% of the 22 indicators. Some could report on less than 25%, and not a single country at the time was able to report on more than 50% of these indicators. Next slide. As a custodian agency, FAO's responsibility stretches well beyond that of simply collecting and compiling data from countries. A custodian agency is also responsible for curating the indicator methodologies, ensuring the quality of the data collected from countries, analyzing and disseminating the data, and, crucially, providing statistical capacity development support. Broadly, FAO provides statistical capacity development support either through technical assistance or through trainings to countries, with a view to strengthening their statistical and monitoring systems for reporting the SDG indicators. This type of statistical capacity development support is tailored to country needs and can target any stage of the data value chain, going, for example, from designing and implementing a survey to processing and analyzing the data, and all the way to disseminating and using that data for policy making. Next slide, please. So, what the graph that we see on this slide then tells us that since 2019, the number of countries that have received training or technical assistance on at least one of the 22 indicators under FAO custodianship has grown steadily and has reached 182 countries in the latest period. Actually, many of these countries have received training or technical assistance on more than one indicator. And if we move to the next slide, we can also see as a complementary capacity development resource in FAO's toolbox, we have a comprehensive set of e-learning courses on the SDG indicators. They're freely available through the FAO online e-learning academy, and you can see the link to that here on the bottom left corner. Going back to our map, if we fast forward to today, we have a completely different situation. Thanks in part to FAO's efforts in supporting countries through an array of statistical capacity development initiatives, as well as the efforts that countries themselves are expending to integrate the SDG indicators in their national SDG monitoring frameworks. Today, as we can see on this map, almost all countries report on over 50% of the 22 indicators under FAO custodianship, whereas there is also a sizable number of countries that are able to report on over 75%. From a slightly different perspective, it is also possible to calculate an average reporting rate. So the number of indicators that the average country is able to report. And we can see how that has evolved over time. What this graph shows us corroborates that idea that we have never had as much data on the food and agriculture related SDG indicators as we have today. More specifically, we can see that the average reporting rate has reached almost 65% today, up from only 50% in 2021 and only 31% in 2017. Finally, we can also gauge data availability on an indicator per indicator basis. What we can see on this slide is that at the very beginning of the SDG process, back in 2015, most indicators under FAO custodianship were new, and in fact, did not even have an internationally agreed methodology, and therefore were categorized in the so-called Tier 3 category. 10 years later, the situation is completely different. All the indicators have an established methodology, and the majority have data on more than 50% of countries. Hence, they are classified in the so-called Tier 1 category. Only a small number of indicators remain in the Tier 2 category, where data exists for less than 50% of countries. These Tier 2 indicators are described with more caution and nuance throughout the report, as it is more difficult to draw conclusions about global and regional progress, as we heard before, that applies to indicators 5A1 and 5A2, for example. So we are making progress on data availability. But if I may use the expression, this progress is like a version of the cup that is half full. There is also a version of the cup that is half empty. And that version calls attention to the fact that there are still large data gaps in terms of country coverage, especially for certain indicators, that hampers our ability to monitor progress towards certain targets. Both data collection and statistical capacity development are inherently a resource-intensive activity, highly dependent on the availability of funding. So in reality, data gaps are very much driven by funding gaps. In terms of funding, therefore, what we see, and this is something also highlighted in the latest reports by Paris 21, is that there is a continued trend of stagnation in funding for data and statistics overall. And this is despite some pioneering research that demonstrates very high returns for investing in data systems. Other recent reports suggest that a staggering 75% of low and middle income countries face moderate or severe funding gaps for national statistical programs. Clearly, global efforts such as the Clearinghouse for Financing for Development Data and the Global Data Facility have not managed to reverse this overall grim picture. Despite these challenges, recent global commitments offer hope. In 2024, the Pact for the Future's Digital Compact called for a 50% increase in data availability to strengthen SDG monitoring. Most recently, in fact, just a couple of months ago, the Seville Compromise on Financing for Development recommitted to increasing financial support for data collection and statistical capacity building of national statistical systems in developing countries. From a more thematic point of view, the Committee on World Food Security also called for concerted action to enhance the availability and quality of food security and nutrition data in order to improve decision-making. So it is now time to translate all these commitments into action, start closing the data gaps that still hamper progress towards the achievement of Agenda 2030. And for its part, FAO will continue to support countries in this endeavor. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dorian. Thank you, José, Valérie, and Dorian for such a comprehensive overview of the report and beyond the report, what the challenges are. We have to make progress. So now I would like to open the floor virtually as well as in the room to see if there are questions, and then we'll move to the panel discussion. And I'm delighted, of course, to welcome Ambassador Habib from Indonesia, who has joined us for the second part. But first, let's see if there are any questions in the room. I don't see also any question. No, it was a practical detail that came up, so no need for. So let's move then. If you agree, colleagues, let us move to the second part of the event, which will consist in a panel discussion with two guest speakers who can give us further insights into some key aspects highlighted in the report. And first, we'll start with our first speaker, Dr. Luc Ingenbleek from the World Health Organization. And Dr. Ingenbleek is a food safety and nutrition specialist with a focus on dietary data and dietary exposure assessment. And he's therefore ideally placed to discuss this new MDD indicator and its two sub-components, I believe, the one handled by FAO on women and the one handled by UNICEF on children. Dr. Ingenbleek, the adoption of the MDD as a new SDG indicator has been celebrated as a milestone in the recognition of the impact that healthy diets have on health outcomes. And WHO, as we heard, has been a key member of this alliance of countries and international organizations that promoted its adoption. Moving forward, how do you see this new indicator contributing to the achievement of SDG target 2.2, particularly in addressing malnutrition among women and children? How can it support countries in shaping policies and designing targeted intervention on both nutrition and health? Luc, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dominique. And first of all, thank you for having us today, and congratulations on the new SDG indicator under FAO custodianship. Well, like our sister agencies like FAO and UNICEF, we are strong believers in impact monitoring frameworks. Until recently, no indicator of dietary patterns was recognized as a sustainable development goal, whereas on one hand, 150 million children are stunted, so they don't grow as much as they should. And at the other end of the spectrum, non-communicable diseases, partly due to poor diets, account for 75% of all deaths worldwide. This double burden of malnutrition needs addressing. This new indicator is useful because it brings the attention of the international public health community on the need for monitoring diets. Collecting dietary data is essential for assessing the impact of policies and interventions carried out by countries and partners to improve the nutrition of the most vulnerable population groups, such as women of childbearing age and children.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. Now, with that, perhaps I'd like to see if there is any other comments people want to make. I had a question for you. What do you see as the main opportunities and challenges countries may face in implementing this MDD indicator, and what is envisaged on the WHO side to support them in this process?
Well, dietary diversity is one important dimension of a healthy diet. This is what this new SDG indicator is reflecting. Interestingly, this dietary diversity is also a suitable proxy for micronutrient adequacy. But unfortunately, there is no one-size-fits-all indicator for reflecting all the dimensions of a healthy diet. For example, MDD cannot reflect the dimension of moderation, which is important to ensure that populations are not ingesting too much sugar, salt, and unhealthy fats. In addition, a diet challenge is that collecting dietary data is resource intensive. It's very expensive. However, there is a great opportunity in the emergence of low burden data collection tools, such as the Dietary Quality Questionnaire, which can not only inform this new indicator, but also a suite of useful indicators which cover the most critical aspects of healthy dietary patterns. WHO is committed to partner with member states, FAO, UNICEF, and other technical and financial partners to provide guidance and foster the integration of such tools in routine data collection efforts. The frameworks which have already been considered for the collection of low-burden dietary data include MIX, DHS, LSMS, and STEP surveys.
Super. Thank you. Thank you very much, Luc, for these comments, and I'm sure there will be opportunities later on. So now I'd like to move to His Excellency Ambassador Habib, Deputy Permanent Representative and Chargé d'Affaires of Indonesia to the UN in Geneva. Warm welcome. Mr. Habib, according to the progress assessment finding in this new report, Indonesia clearly comes out as one of the most improved countries across the food and agriculture related SDG indicator under FAO custodianship. This year also happens to be a year in which Indonesia has presented a VNR, a voluntary national review, to the high-level political forum, describing its overall progress towards achieving the SDGs. Could you please tell us what are the key insights and best practices that we can glean from Indonesia's latest VNR, which have contributed to your country impressive progress, and how have you prioritized the implementation of the SDGs in the National Development Agenda? Sir, welcome, and thanks for your
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, Dominic and colleagues, also colleagues on the online platform. And let me also thanking the FAO for organizing this forum. And as you mentioned, Dominic, Indonesia has already submitted our fourth PNR during the high-level political forum on SDG last July in New York. We are honored to share our views as one of the most improved countries across SDG targets, which are related also to FAO custodianship. We hope our experience contribute to global learning and reinforce the value of multilateral cooperation. As you see that I have already prepared some slides to get better understanding on what is the status of Indonesia's achievement on the SDGs. The theme of our PNR is together on track toward 2030 and covers all 70 SDGs with focus on SDG 3, 5, 8, 14, and 17. It reflects our conviction that inclusive growth, resilience, and for us, the SDGs are not just lofty goals. They are a living guide for how we govern, how we innovate, and most importantly, how we care together. This fourth VNR comes at a crucial moment. 2030 is just 5 years away, and many global indicators are off track. But Indonesia remains focused moving forward. I'm proud to share that 61% of 233 national SDG indicators are currently on track to meet their 2030 milestones and targets. That's more than just numbers. It reflects careful planning, shared responsibility, and the ability to stay the course, even in turbulent times. Let me now highlight our achievement on 5 SDG targets related to the FAO. On SDG 2, Zero Hunger, we have reduced undernourishment and child stunting through expanded nutritious meal programs and support for climate resilient local agriculture. In this regard, undernourishment declined to 8.27% in 2024, stunting among children under 5 dropped to 19.8%, down from 37% in 2013. The free nutritious meal program has expanded nationally, targeting vulnerable children and pregnant mothers, and support for local farmers and climate resilient agriculture is central to our strategy. On SDG 6, regarding clean water and sanitation, we have improved access to safe drinking water and sanitation with stronger water governance reflected in our rising integrated water resource management score. And with that, we have already safely managed drinking water access, reached 20.5% of households. Safe sanitation access improved to over 10%, and our integrated water resource management score rose to 70 out of 100, reflecting better governance and infrastructure. We are committed to expanding access, especially in rural and remote areas. Let's now turn on the SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. We are now transitioning to our circular economy through expanded waste management, eco-labeling, and initiative to reduce food loss. Waste management coverage reached 71.5% with improved recycling rates. The National Circular Economy Roadmap guides our transition to resource efficiency. Public awareness and eco-labeling initiatives are promoting sustainable lifestyles, and we are also working to reduce food loss and strengthen producer responsibility frameworks, engaging producers, including in local level, through farmer corporation. On SDG 14, Life Below Water, we have expanded marine protected areas to nearly 30 million hectares and increased support for small-scale fishers, because the ocean is not just a resource for us, but it's part of who we are. As a maritime nation, Indonesia is committed to protecting its ocean. Marine protected areas expanded to 29.9 million hectares. Small-scale fishers now benefit from enhanced insurance and safety measures. Marine capture fisheries production increased between 2019 and 2024, but remains below 80% of the maximum sustainable yield. We are also advancing a blue economy that balances resource use with biodiversity and coastal welfare. On SDG 15.1, Life on Land, we have stabilized forest cover, reduced deforestation, and are protecting critical ecosystems to support biodiversity and sustainable land use. Forest cover remains stable at 50.1% of land area. Deforestation rates have declined, supported by monitoring and enforcement. We are also pursuing land degradation neutrality and protecting critical habitats like peatlands and mangrove. Indonesia is committed to halting biodiversity loss and ensuring that land use supports both ecological integrity and local livelihoods. So what's driving our progress? We have 4 key in this case. First, mainstreaming the SDGs into our planning. They are fully integrated into national and subnational plans aligned with the President's Astacita vision and Indonesia's development path toward 2045. Second, strong local ownership. 32 provinces have their own SDG action plans, and 63 university-based SDG centers are anchoring these goals in policy, academia, and communities. Third, better data for better decisions. Through our One Data Indonesia initiative, we are using disaggregated socioeconomic data to ensure support reaches the most vulnerable: women, children, persons with disabilities, and those in remote regions. Fourth, transparency and accountability. Since 2021, our National Audit Board has audited our SDG implementation, and yes, this VNR was independently reviewed too. In an era of growing global distrust, we believe transparency is a key. And looking ahead, Indonesia is focusing on 4 key transformations as part of our journey toward Golden Indonesia 2045. One is driving inclusive growth, ensuring food, energy, and water security for all. Second, embracing digital innovation to extend access and opportunities everywhere. Third, mobilizing sustainable finance through green bonds, SDG bonds, and Islamic finance tools. And the fourth, building stronger global partnerships so the recovery is fair, just, and resilient for all. Colleagues, in closing, Indonesia's commitment to the 2030 agenda is deeply rooted in our national development priorities, as you asked the questions, and our vision of Astacita launched by the President. Our progress across key SDGs reflect not only policy alignment, but also the power of inclusive partnership. We recognize that consistency, humility, and a spirit of cooperation are essential to sustaining this momentum. And Indonesia stands ready to share its experience, learn from others, and lead collaboratively, because the future we seek is one that must be built together, fair, resilient, and truly shared by all. And I thank you very much for your attention.
So I thank you so much, Excellency, for such a great presentation illustrating. I mean, still you are very humble on this 61% of 233 indicators, national indicators that are on track. But then I think what was very good is that you presented the details and what it actually takes to go there, and what it takes is indeed mainstreaming in planning, strong local ownership, better data. Thank you. I saw my colleagues here were so happy that you were saying we need better data. I think we will invite you to more FAO events for you to make the case for data and for FAO statistics. And then this very important point of transparency and accountability. So thank you so much. I know you are a bit tight on the schedule, but we might come back with another question if you still have time. But now I would like to move to our third panelist, back to José. You opened this event by highlighting the overall findings of the report. Then we went into some specific with Valérie and Dorian, focusing on capacity development. And then we then heard from our colleagues from WHO and in Indonesia, and both from the MDD and other concrete application in Indonesia. And now we want to go back to you, José. Really try to get to the bottom of the issue of how to do statistical capacity development in the context of dwindling resources. Dorian already pointed to the fact that while there are many global commitments about increasing funding for data, these are not always translating into concrete action. My question to you is this: what is FAO strategy for addressing these challenges and ensuring it continues to support countries producing more data and better data?
Thank you, Dominique, for your question. Because let me start by saying that data and statistics is something very, very serious in FAO. Our institution was created with a very clear mandate on contributing to the world with a reliable, accurate, and timely statistics on the area of food and agriculture. And this year, the organization is going to celebrate its 80th birthday, and it's exactly the same number of years in which FAO has been producing statistics to the world. But an important point to make is that we don't do it alone, okay? So FAO it's not the case that we have our own capacity at country level doing surveys by our own and bringing that data into our data platform. It doesn't work like this. As UN agency, we are very much respectful on the data that our country members produce, and actually we partner with members in order to be able to collect that data, produce our value added of standardizing, harmonizing the data produced by many countries, and with that being able to produce global assessments on how the situation in food and agriculture is. Because of that, the type of effort that we can do in order to strengthen the statistical capacities of countries has always been an important part of our mandate, and we take it very, very seriously. And of course, in the case of SDGs, as soon as the SDGs was approved, right, we went into thinking mode on how we can support our country members to develop their own national monitoring systems to be able to report on the SDGs and being able to fulfill what Your Excellency said, this world in which we all together try to prosper and develop. Now, you have mentioned, Dominique, that right now we are in a particular context, okay? A context that I would like to characterize like a context in which we have a particular issue on demand and supply, okay? And let me go a little bit more into explaining why. On one side, on the demand side, we are being challenged by more and more demands on data, okay? Of course, the SDG at the moment that it was created, okay, it expanded completely the amount of data that countries needed, and of course, custodian UN agencies needed to support countries to monitor, okay? So I don't know if you remember in the case of the Millennium Development Agenda, okay, we had about 30, 40 indicators to monitor, and we went from those 40 indicators to the 232, 33 indicators that were right now monitored, right? That already basically meant a big, huge challenge in terms of more demand for good and timely data. Okay. At the same time, there is as well other very much related agendas that also need better data. Okay. In the case of food and agriculture, we can basically relate to the agenda of food system transformation, right? That was basically conceived under the latest Food System Summit and the different stock-taking moments that are having agenda that are very much related, but in any case, that need as well yet another push, okay, for data. I have always said that in the world of food and agriculture, we are very good trying to describe what happens at the farm level, okay, that's the agricultural part in FAO. We are very good in describing what happens at the demand side, okay, with gaps and everything that my colleague will mention, right? but we have data on that. But there is very little data on what happens in the middle, okay? On how that food produced in the farm goes to our tables in our houses, which of course means a lot of different processes that must happen, like transportation, storage, retail, etc., right? So we have to do better, okay, in producing this type of data. And when I am saying we, it's not only FAO, it's mainly countries, right, that need to accelerate, okay, the production of that type of data in order to try to inform these other important aspects of development. And as Dorian emphasized, and it was also said by Luc, producing food and agriculture related indicators are very much data intensive. And by data intensive, that means as well resource intensive, okay? At the moment of describing the 22 SDG indicators that are under FAO custodianship, in order to be able to produce them, means that there are different types of sources of data that have to be collected at country level. And here we're talking, in the case of agriculture, about agricultural censuses, about agricultural surveys, right? About administrative registries, about farm registries, right? And all of those are titanic efforts of data collection in the field, okay, that demand an important amount of resources. So again, from the demand side, we have more and more demands for data. But from the point of view of the supply side, countries, okay, and in this case, FAO, we're very much constrained on the resources that we have at our disposal in order to be able to collect these types of data. Now, FAO longer-term strategy for improving the quantity and the quality of data in our domain of food and agriculture relies extensively on supporting countries on statistical capacity development program. Okay, our objective is to, especially with the less developed countries, right, to strengthen their statistical capacities in order to collect, process, analyze, disseminate these data. And FAO has a constellation of projects, okay, that, well, constellation sounds like a lot, right? We have a decent amount of number of projects that have been basically put together in order to be able to serve our country members in this on this side. So we have, and let me refer to the specific capacity building programs and SDGs that Dorian already presented. We have an extensive program to support countries on collecting data from agricultural censuses. We have a specific program to support low and lower middle income countries to collect year-to-year agricultural surveys. Agricultural surveys is one of the main sources of data for the majority of the food and agriculture related SDG indicators. We have a specific program to support countries on collect data on food security, okay, and do security assessments, just to mention a few. But now let me go back to the issue of the inconsistency between demand and supply, and especially in the current context in which there are less and less resources. Here I'm talking about development cooperation resources in general, and of course less and less development cooperation resources towards the area of data. Since many years, there has been a specific call of the data statistical community and the development community of trying to devote at least 1% of the resources in development cooperation towards data. Okay, and despite the fact that there has been some increments in latest years, that number do not go beyond 0.6% of the overall resources dedicated to data. So there is an important gap. Now, in this context of how you call it, willing resources, of course, that means that we have to be smarter. Okay, we have to be more efficient in order to be able to use the resources that we have in order to still be doing what we are mandated to do, that is to support countries in strengthening their capacities. In that sense, in FAO, we are scaling up our investment in innovative methods of data collection, including data gaps. The idea here is to make the data collections as more efficient as possible. Okay, we're trying to get the data that we need, but also to do it at least at lower cost. That means basically trying to work on the sample designs, trying to use technology for data collection that can decrease the cost of data collection. At the same time, we're also investing on how to reduce this cost of data collection in the medium to longer term by using alternative methods, okay, of data collection, such as, for example, the type of opportunity that the spatial data gives to us, especially in agricultural statistics. There is at least the scope to do a lot, okay? We're using air observation data, use spatial methods in order to try to measure why it is being produced and what is the productivity of that production. In the same way, the use of administrative records is something that we have to push a little bit more, trying to adapt administrative records of farm registries to the possibility to use it for statistical purposes, which sounds trivial, but it's not trivial. And of course, we are also exploring models of data sharing with the private sector. The private sector handles a lot of data, okay, a lot of data, especially in the area of food, okay, and that is data that can be basically tools for public purposes, right? But of course, there is an issue of data sharing there, okay, that needs to be solved. We are pushing to that direction. Of course, we are also prioritizing the delivery of our capacity development activities, trying to find efficiencies in that. We are as well trying to invest more in data use, okay, in order to trigger a virtuous cycle where more data is being demanded as well by policymakers, okay, in a way that more data is produced because there is more demand for that data. We have revamped our resource mobilization strategy in order to try to find more creative ways to approach and engage donors. And of course, we are also betting on strengthening our partnerships, like the one that we have, for example, with WFO here present, right? So we took the challenge of being custodian of an additional SDG indicator, but I think that in these days it's better to do it as partners, right? Because in that way we are able to pool resources and be more efficient in that kind of work. So in a nutshell, that is a FAO strategy in which basically we have to be smarter and more efficient.
Well, thank you, José, for giving us your perspective indeed. Now I'd like to open the floor to see if there are questions from colleagues here in the room. No, I don't see any online. I think it was very clear because there are not many questions. But I have a question for you, Excellency. Data. Data is one of the 4 areas you mentioned. And what we realize is that, well, data is that, first of all, you are reporting very good data. And you are reporting very good data, most probably because you are able to provide your decision maker with very good data on that enables the appropriate decisions to be made. Could you please elaborate a bit more on this, on the Indonesian approach to data and why is it so critical in your view?
Well, I thank you for the questions. If for Indonesia's case, if you look back to perhaps 15 or 20 years ago, we started the One Data Initiative in Indonesia. So we gather and collect all data into one single system on data collection. This is a part of the reforms in the governance by using the approach of the global good governance initiative (GGI) at that time. And since then, in every policy making, we always use this evidence-based data. It's collected by the several related ministerial agencies and centered at the National Data Statistics Center, Bureau Pusat Statistik in Indonesia. And we use that data from them. And the second one is, because this evidence-based data collection is important, the second one is the transparency, meaning that we tried our best that data is factual. The data is actual and collected by the relevant government agency before they are making a formulation of the policy. And the third one goes to the third level, that is monitoring and evaluation, and to make sure that the data that we use is accountable. That's why we always with this National Auditing Board. The other part of the importance of data is the inclusivity. I mean, we don't want to put the ownership of SDG only by the government side. We tried to make the SDG and data used belongs to everyone: local government, civil society, academicians. So every time we use the data, it's not about data collected by the the local government officials to make us happy in the capital. No, they have their own system to make it accountable, transparent, and the most important thing is the ownership by the local actors. So they come to us and bring the data that they themselves, the one that collecting data, put it into the formulation and submit it to the government as National One Data Initiative.
Thank you, Excellency. Very interesting again, Paul. Thank you for sharing the expertise and the experience of your country. I don't see any other colleague willing to take the floor. David, please.
Yes, I take very seriously the comment that you have made that we need to build more on partnership. We're in a moment that the US system is under stress, so we need to maximize synergies and reduce overlap. There, I would recommend, besides UN Comtrade that everybody know, that is developing a serious subset of database with much more complex indexes that could be very useful for FAO and for our show. I'll give you an example. We have an index of food trade by processing level. So all the intermediate products and value addition and jumping from HS code to HS code and defining the values in move forward. For example, that could be very useful for FAO. We have the liner connectivity index with prices from any country level of connectivity that defines the export price of the food, at least in the transport side. So that could be added to your pen. We have a database on trade biodiversity-based products that includes eatable and non-eatable, and a new one that we have is very cool one in non-plastic trade substitutes, in non-plastic materials and natural fibers like from Indonesia, and other materials that are used to substitute synthetic materials of organic oil. So just to give some ideas of some elements we can do, and on nutrition and health, one particular sector that is booming now, and it's a common now that we have in Indonesia, FAO and Dorian show, I cannot hide this. 2 days ago, we launched, on the leadership of Indonesia, France, Madagascar, and Chile, the first UN Global Seaweed Initiative. And seaweed is becoming a key sector for nutrition by women. 50% of startup of seaweed are from women leaders, and second, the labor is 70% women. And it's a fundamental nutritional component now at very low cost. And by the way, we don't have guidance on seaweed for in the codex and in the science. So we have some homework today. So yes.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, David, for these additional comments. I think now, well, we have reached the end. It's almost top of the hour. I think we can say that the report on tracking progress on food and agriculture related SDG indicators 2025 has been launched, well launched. Thank you very much, José, Valérie, Dorian, for presenting what is a relatively mixed picture, no? Some progress, some areas where there is less progress. But what I see also is that efforts are being made. FAO is giving it all to make sure that we support our countries our members in the best possible way, so that they have the evidence that enables them to make the right decision. Thank you, big thank you to our colleague from WHO to present the MDD indicator, and to you, Excellency, for putting us really translating from this sort of global report to the reality of the country that really make things happen, and is therefore able to report on very impressive report. I think it shows again the importance of political will.
Yeah.
When there is the political will, and when there is a way, and when there is political will, our organization, we are there to support you. We are there to provide you all with all the support you need to translate this political will into concrete results, not only at capital level, but as you said, at grassroots level, at people's level, to make sure it translates in changing their life. So with that, again, thanks a lot to everyone. I'm sorry I was not able to crack jokes like they were able to do in the other room, because the atmosphere seemed very light there. But thank you very much for being with us today, and we look forward for your next visit, and hopefully one more opportunity to make the case for good data, and which is the key of everything. And at the FAO, we are relatively good at producing good data. So thank you.
Thank you so much.